hardware documentation. She has worked in several verticals, to name a few: networking, telecom, BFSI, healthcare, and ERP solution. She is very passionate about mentoring, continuous learning, and innovation. She is also interested in interfacing with customers to understand their requirements and translate that into end user documents. Thank you.
Thank you. So, good evening, all. Um, I know that it's been a very long day, very tiring day, with a lot of PPTs, a lot of slideshows. So, I will make sure that this session is not going to be heavily loaded with slides. So, I want to make this more interactive. What I'm going to talk about is more about the day-to-day problems, like challenges that we as tech writers face, and we just in our organization how we try to unravel those challenges and brought about just tweaking our process to ensure the challenges are addressed. So I want to make it more interactive. So this is going to be a very, very simple and very short session. So let's go into it. So synergize to make a difference. So I'd like to start this session with this quote from Stephen Covey. So I feel that this quote is more relevant to this session. Okay. So this is going to be the coverage of the presentation today, for the session today. So I'll just give a brief introduction about our company, what we do, and then some of the common challenges that we as tech writers face, and the doc processes that we've established. And we use Jira and Confluence as our tools, and how we customize that to suit our requirements, and then the audience key takeaways. So a brief introduction. So who we are. So we are a solutions provider for network visibility, security, and analytics needs. So what we do is our platform, it aggregates and analyzes the traffic, and the traffic that is spanning across physical and virtual nodes, and it routes the traffic, basically filters the traffic and routes the traffic to the required tools. So that's a gist of it. So you can go to Gigamon website to know more about our products and solutions. So our doc set, so hardware, software guides, troubleshooting guides, KB articles, API guides, and supportability metrics. So the tools that we predominantly use Jira, which is the issue tracking tool for us, the Confluence, and Madcap Flare. These are the three tools we predominantly use in our organization. So coming to the challenges. So can you please tell me some basic challenges, very, very, very common challenges that we as tech writers face? Yes. Perfect. Yes. So yeah, so you've pretty much covered all the challenges that I want to talk about. So getting ad hoc doc requests. So we will be in the release cycle, and suddenly there will be a request coming in for a feature that is, it's going to be a beta feature, it's going to be an early access feature. So that kind of off track request that comes in. So that again becomes a challenge for us to meet that. The next is the inputs and reviews, as you've said. So getting the engineering team's time and getting the inputs from them and making them review it, making them accountable for certain information that needs to be given by them. That is the biggest challenge that we've always been facing and we are facing till today. Next is cross-functional collaboration. So we as tech writers, we are heavily dependent on other stakeholders, be it PLM, be it dev, test, support teams. and solutions. So we are heavily dependent on them, and it is of utmost importance for us to collaborate with other stakeholders, other cross-functional teams, and customer escalations. So there are certain escalations that comes up, like this is not there in the document, this is incorrect. So those kind of customer escalations that we get. So how can we handle these challenges? So in our organization, what we did was, I'll just tell you the best practices that we followed. So it's the same DDLC process that we followed, but then kind of tweaking using Jira and Confluence, and how we were able to mitigate these, overcome these challenges. That's what I'm going to talk about. So unraveling the enigma. So when it comes to ad hoc doc process or doc requests, so what we did was we streamlined the doc requirement process using Jira. So each of these solutions that I'm presenting here, we will go in depth in the slides to come. Inputs and reviews. So we need to partner with the engineering team to make sure we are getting the required data and required input in time. And for that, we need to establish a doc workflow which is in line with the engineering workflow. So let's see how we are going to do that. Next is the cross-functional collaboration. So for that, again, we use Jira and Confluence, wherein we try to co-author content and empower customers through visual aids for them to troubleshoot and enhance the user experience. So this is a high-level doc requirement process that we came up with. So before drilling down to this, so if you see the process that I'm going to talk about, we try to implement it, but then when the process is there, it also depends on how well it is being implemented, how well it is being taken by the engineering teams as well. So this process is not just for the tech writers, right? Like we want the success of the process is only when others also try to implement it. So for that, we did face a lot of challenges. So this is the third release which just got over. Like yesterday, we got the third release which got over, and now we are seeing that there is improvement and it's more stabilized. So any process for that matter, it takes time. So you need to advertise. You need to advertise with the different stakeholders. So what we did was we tried to socialize with the stakeholders. We did the flow talks, then during the Scrum meetings. So whichever possible meetings, wherever we got a chance, we tried to socialize our process and handhold the stakeholders through this process. So it's not just enough if the process is put there and it's all documented, well documented, but people has to, they must go and look into that where it is documented. So that people don't have the time actually. So you need to handhold the stakeholders. So that's what we did. And now we see that it's been stabilized and we are seeing results. So it has taken at least 3 releases for us to have this process be a success. So coming to this doc requirement process. So as I said, the issue tracking tool that we use is Jira, but then though my focus is more on Jira and Confluence, you can try, in case if you have other issue tracking tool that you are using in your organization, you can just try and see if this solution can be implemented in those tools as well. So how we've done it is, if in a ticket, like we have Jira tickets, and in Jira tickets you have the tickets are raised for tracking the engineering effort. So we thought of having, instead of having a separate ticket again opened, or it could be a subtask that gets opened for a documentation effort, why can't we track the documentation effort in the same ticket? So we customize Jira so that if any ticket that has, the ticket could be a feature, an enhancement request, or it could be a bug. So if a ticket has doc updates, so what they have to do is they have to flag it for the 3 different requirements that we have. So when we talk about doc updates, we have release note updates, we have end user guide updates, and end user guide, yes, we also have the troubleshooting guide. So troubleshooting and KB articles, we need to treat it a bit different from the end user guides. So though the troubleshooting is also part of end user guide, but it has to be treated a bit differently. So we try to come up with this kind of this kind of a flow chart where we track these three efforts separately, but in the Jira itself, in the same Jira as the product is getting tracked. So they have to flag the ticket for these three, one of these three requirements, or it could be all three as well. So when they flag it, it is not enough if they just go and click yes. They have to give us the required inputs. So if the required inputs are not given in the Jira, it will not allow you to save the ticket. So what are the fields? We will come to it later. So that's the high level process. So you go, you flag a ticket, and you also give the required information, and only then you will be able to save it. Okay. So customizing Jira. So why should we customize Jira? As I said, so tracking the doc effort in the same ticket. So that's the reason why we want to customize Jira. So how we customized it. So if you see here, this is a screenshot of our issue ticket, where you have this information tab, which is actually a default tab. We introduced two other tabs. One is for the documentation and the other for the troubleshooting tab. So we created two new customized tabs for tracking the doc requests. So what is the benefit of doing this? So we partner with the engineering team to flag the doc requirements, and it also reduces the chaos that we have in gathering the requirements, gathering the required inputs from various other multiple sources, basically. So it becomes a one point of reference where we can get all the information. The second thing is we whatever updates that are made in the Jira ticket of the product, they could be the status changes or any information, they go and track, have it in Jira, in their Jira ticket, and immediately the writer is appraised of it. So that it eliminates that communication gap. So that's the reason we thought we can do it this way. So let's get into the three different doc updates that that was there in the previous slide. So the release note, end user guide, and troubleshooting. So let's drill down into each of these. So for release notes, we again use Jira and Confluence for tracking, authoring, and publishing. So how we do that? So if you see here, this snapshot gives you the documentation tab, and in the documentation tab, the different fields that we've introduced to track the release note effort. So if they identify a particular ticket for release note, predominantly it will be bugs. Okay, so when they identify this, what happens is they can have this release note as yes, and once they add yes here, the release note description field becomes mandatory. They must give the details here in the RN description field. They have to give it. The workaround, of course, you may have workaround, you may not have workaround. So it's if there are any workarounds, you can provide the workaround there. So immediately when the release note field is flagged, the writer is the tech pubs. We are notified basically. So once we are notified during the release note phase, writer goes and edits the description in this RN description field. We edit it. So after editing, what happens? So this is the transformation. Like from Jira, if you see here, Jira is there, Jira ticket, the Jira ID, and the release note description. And from here, we use a macro in Confluence, which picks the data, the relevant data, whatever data we need, it picks up and gets it into the Confluence page. And from Confluence page, we can export to different formats, like it is Word or PDF, or now in the recent update with Madcap Flare, You can also you can import the Confluence page, HTML page into Madcap Flare. That feature is also available. So this is how, so if you see here, the benefits again. So it is kind of an automated authoring effort, release note automation, we can call it as. And when we co-author, when we co-author content, it improves accuracy and it also reduces the cycle time and single source of truth. So this way, the release note can be automated basically. So whatever is there in the Jira ticket gets translated into the release notes. So next, coming to the end user guides. So if you see here, there is, again in the documentation tab, we have other fields which is more specific to the end user guide updates. So when a particular ticket is flagged for doc updates, what happens is the doc required field has to come as yes, they have to put it as yes. So when that is done, there is a functional specification link which is there in the in the same thing. So there, this functional specification link field becomes mandatory. So they have to provide a link, the functional spec link. We use Confluence to create the functional spec links. So you may ask, what if there is not, we don't have a functional spec, or it's a minor update and the engineer is not giving you the functional spec link. So what we did was, we have created kind of a form in Confluence. You can call it as a form where it's a template basically. So they just need to fill those details in the Confluence page. It has prerequisites, it has what is the feature is all about and things like that. So those things have to be filled in and create a page, and that link has to be given here. Only then they will be again be able to save this ticket. And there are other fields which can be, which either if the development team, they have that details, they can fill it up, or else immediately when the doc is flagged, the tech pubs is notified and we can take care of it. So benefits, single point of reference again, and we are more aligned with the development team. And as I said, the writers are appraised automatically, and better traceability. So going to the Jira workflow. So before I go into the Jira workflow, so we have customized Jira, we have given all those fields and other things, but then we also need to have a proper workflow in place for the process to be success. So before going into the Jira workflow, this is basically, we are also into Agile, and I'm assuming that here you're all into Agile, right? We are all part, and of course, when it comes to the documentation angle, we will be, majority of the times it will be partly Agile. We can't be fully Agile, it will be partly Agile. By partly Agile, what I mean is it could be n-1 iteration or n-2 iterations. So that's how it is. So we were thinking of having the workflow defined, which is more in line with the development workflow. So how we have done it. So during the user story sprint, during the particular sprint, when the user story state is in progress, that is when the doc state becomes open. So in that state, what happens is the doc requirements are well defined, and they give us the required details basically. The requirements are defined basically in this. So we are set to start authoring, start the doc updates. So the next comes the user story. When the user story state goes into testing phase, that is when we start the planning content. So when we are doing the planning the content, that is when they have the handoff also done. So the dev team provides a handoff to the testing, and then during that handoff meeting, TechPubs is an important stakeholder, and we will be apprised of what this feature is all about, and we start to plan content. So after that state is when the user story state becomes done. That is when we are going to start the authoring. So at this time, they will not be able to put the user story as done. This is the time where the definition of done comes into place. And again, TechPubs will be a very important stakeholder there. So it could be the criteria for definition of done will be handoffs in the sense it could be a walkthrough of UI, but not in all sprints you will have a UI. So it could be a concept walkthrough. It could be anything like a conceptual walkthrough, feature walkthrough, and the UI walkthrough, and proper environment given to us for testing. So all those things are part of your criteria, the definition of done criteria. So once that is done and we provide, the TechPubs provides a sign off, only then the user story state can be moved to done. And that's when we start with the drafting content. So next comes the phase where, I'm sorry, the text is not getting displayed here because of some technical issue. So the writing and reviews happen in subsequent sprints. So the sprint is over, but then, as I said, we will be n-1 iteration. So during the product increment stabilization phase, that's when we will be completing the documentation. So that way, the doc state, when it is moved to in review. So in this phase, what we'll be doing is we'll be documenting, authoring the features, authoring the doc updates, and then we push it to the in review state. The reviewers could be, for us, the reviewers are development and QA, and in sometimes like there are certain anchor features that are there, very important features. So at that time, we pull in the PLM support team. So all the different stakeholders comes into place. They they will have to give the reviews, and they also do a doc testing in case if it's going to be a migration document, or it could be an installation, fresh installation or something. So we provide them, the support team, we provide them with the document, and they do a doc testing. They actually follow the instructions that are given in the document and see if the product, they are able to migrate or they are able to install it. So those kind of testing happens during this phase, and the documentation review is done. So next is the doc state reviews. Doc state moves into the incorporating reviews, wherein we are provided with the required feedback, and we update the document. So it is like we again send it to them for a sign off. So that's what happens here, and then the doc state becomes done. So you may ask, okay, this is an ideal scenario, like everything goes on fine, perfect. But then what if the reviews are not given on time? That's the practical scenario. This is the ideal scenario, and that is the practical scenario where you don't get everything in time. So what happens in that time? So we have a state called blocked state. So when the doc state is moved to blocked state, again, we are not going to block the user story, the engineering ticket, for them to put it as complete or something, the verified state. We are not blocking them, but at the same time, we are saying that as doc team, we are blocked because certain data is not available and we are raising concerns. So at that time, what happens is we have scrum meetings, the leads meetings. So in that meeting, so we track these requests, the blocked request, through Jira dashboard. We have a separate dashboard, and sorry. So this is a quick snapshot of how our dashboard looks. So this we track all, we can track everything. Like this is our bug chart. This is our doc state chart. So here, if it is if any tickets are blocked, we track it in this Jira dashboard, and then we escalate it in our Scrum meetings, and then we get the required inputs. Any questions till here? Yes. Yes. Yeah. No, we didn't, because the challenges that we faced was more. So there were we were in a position where we have to do something. We have to set up a process in place, and we got IT's help, and they were able to do it for us. And they were very cooperative, and and I don't think it doesn't involve much money. It involves effort, definitely, the scripts and other things. So it involves effort, but that's what the IT folks are there for. So it's part of their job. So no, we didn't get any pushback. So it's just that we needed to give this process the kind of a POC. We had to give it to the management to get their buy-in. So then once we get the management's buy-in, everything was okay. Yes.
Sometimes there is a customer escalation support associated with that particular work, and there is a last minute turnaround solution that is given because the developer takes this time to analyze the issue and provide a solution. So at that point of time, how does the doc team collaborate with the engineering? Because you have already, he has already provided you a release note, and then you have gone ahead, edited the release note, and perhaps verified with the editor or either the dev or the QA, and then considered as complete. But then at a certain point of time, there are some tickets that are associated with customer support escalation tickets where the same issue gets reproduced in a different environment. But then this ticket is associated with the so how do you customize this entire process of doing such workflows?
So you're talking about last minute updates, last minute surprises that comes in.
So as a say you have ticket number 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Ticket number 1, 2, 3, 4 must have been raised by a customer of your
It could be raised by customers. It could be an internally found previous release bugs. Yeah.
and then there is a linked customer ticket that comes, let's say 7890. It is linked to 1, 2, 3, 4 in some way because either the environment is same or there is some kind of some kind of variable that is associated with that particular ticket. So the two are actually the two tickets are interlinked. You might have to club the release codes, or sometimes it access two different release codes or a last minute workaround solution. So how do you change the process during that cycle?
So we can't change the process because these are all one-off cases for which we can't change the process itself. So that has to be handled on a case-to-case basis. But by automating this release note process, we can also accommodate last-minute changes. So we are not like whatever updates are done, it is done in the Jira, and we just it's a macro that is run, and we are pulling the content. So the release note can accommodate even last-minute changes. That's how it is. But what I'm getting what you're saying. So this is a one-off case which we have to handle it on a case-to-case basis.
So on a particular Jira ticket, the engineering team is handling it. So the assignee of ticket will be say individual A. Is this going to be a subtask of that individual A, and then you are associated with the same ticket?
See, subtask doesn't qualify for release notes. It has to be a bug that qualifies.
There is a main ticket A.
Yeah.
The subtask meaning documentation is, it comes towards the back end of the cycle when the shipment of the product is about to happen. With all your reference on the enhancement request, with your new features, with your bugs, with your known issues. So how does the assignee of the ticket get changed? So you showed us the doc process of how it will happen. So the assignee of the ticket will be from an engineering team member and not the doc team member. So how does it
See, for release note, it doesn't have to be assignee doc team member. It doesn't have to be.
No, this is regarding the knowledge base article or the end user guide. So that time it is a doc team member. So
That's what we have no, we don't have to change the assignee at all. That's the reason we have a separate tab for documentation where we have doc contact given there. So engineering tickets, so this process is we are aligning ourselves with the engineering team, but at the same time we are not tampering with their information. So the assignee of the ticket still remains dev team, the engineer, but then in the documentation tab, we have a doc contact field where the respective writers are assigned in the doc contact. Okay? Thank you. So moving on, the last process that I would like to talk about is about the troubleshooting. So we have spoken about the release note, the end user guides, and then the troubleshooting. So now I'd like to give us kind of a swim lane diagram of the troubleshooting process that we have. So these are the different, this is where synergizing comes into place. I mean, in other processes also we synergize, but then here we involve more stakeholders basically. So the customer support people, the SEs, that is the sales engineers, solutions team. So all of them become our stakeholders in this. So if you see here, the development team, so it's the normal process where they create a Jira ticket, they start developing the feature, and then they give it to the testing team to test the feature. So when the testing team, the QA team tests a particular feature, that is when they start identifying certain scenarios which qualify for troubleshooting guide. So when they identify those scenarios, they again flag the same ticket for troubleshooting. So we have a separate tab where the troubleshooting becomes yes, and the different details have to be given there. And then once the ticket is flagged for the troubleshooting, it again gets notified to the TechPubs team. So once we get that, again, there is a macro in which we pull the data from the Jira ticket into Confluence, and from there we publish it. We edit, format, and publish it. And there is also one more thing where customer support also raises a ticket. So they handle the customer escalations, and at that time they create the ticket. The Jira ticket is created, and then it is flagged for either KB article or troubleshooting guide. So once that is done, they again give the required information in the ticket itself, and then notifies the TechPubs, and the process follows like that. So this is the high-level process that we have for troubleshooting. Now let's see how we've customized Jira for troubleshooting. So the same thing, we have a troubleshooting requirement field, which has to be put as yes. That's when you flag it. And there is a troubleshooting problems and steps field. So this is where we call out what are the problems, what is the issue, and what is the step that is required for troubleshooting that issue. And sometimes what happens is these steps are internal. We don't want to expose it to the customers. So at that time, those steps will have to be given here as customer support data. So these data is not published to the end users, but still we can pull in these data and make it available for internal consumption. So, and one more thing here is, there may be, I was talking about empowering customers with visual aids. So what we did was, again, in Confluence, there is a plugin, which is IO diagram plugin, through which you can create flowcharts. And when you create flowcharts, it's more appealing, it enhances customer experience. So that way, what we can do is the support team or the development team, basically the support team will not be able to do it, but then they can get in touch with the development team, and the dev team or the QA team, they can quickly create, it's a very simple user-friendly plugin. So with that, they can quickly create a flowchart in Confluence and provide the link here in the steps. So we have the basic data which is available in Confluence. All we need to do is go there, make it more presentable to the customers, and publish it. So these are the benefits. So it becomes the common platform. The content is single sourced. We publish content as KB articles as well as troubleshooting guide. Co-authoring, again, co-authoring that improves accuracy. Usage of Draw.io plugin to create flowcharts. So here I would like to, it's a quick video, it's a 30 seconds video, 25 seconds video. This is the flowchart that we've, it's a sample flowchart because I'm not supposed to give that what we've done it. It's a, it's more internal. So it's a sample flowchart that I try to create for STC purpose. don't know, it's not running. Okay, I think the video is not running. I'm sorry about that. So basically, if you see here, this is the flow chart that we came up with, and these things that you are seeing here, right? These are pop-ups, kind of tooltips. So when the user hovers over this part, the respective the steps pops up. So it becomes in one diagram. They can actually, in case if they want to do it through a UI, the steps with respect to UI pops up. They can, if they have a CLI, so they want to do it through CLI, they can do it through CLI. So this is the flowchart that we came up with, which actually enhanced the customer experience as well. And we've got some really good feedback from the customers for this. So upshot, so we have implemented, so we had this concept and we've implemented this concept. So what is the impact? So the impact is we saw about 15% productivity increase, and the first time accuracy was 40%. So by saying first time accuracy, what I mean is between the dev and the doc team and the dev team. So the comments that, because this is more co-authoring, so they are actually authoring the content and giving it to us. So that way the first time accuracy is increasing. And the level 1 support calls decreases by approximately 25%. So, and ease of customer deployments. So they were able to, again, there also you have a first time accuracy where the customer deployments, they can actually do the configurations and it enhances their experience as well. So these are the audience takeaways, key takeaways, which is again, just want to highlight a few things like single sourcing content, automating authoring, then co-author, empowering customers through visual aids, and then reducing the support calls, and same thing, enhancing customer experience. So any questions? So thank you so much. Thanks for this. Thanks for your patience, and all the best. Thanks.
Thank you, Uthra. So with this, we have come to the end of day one. So before we part, I have few announcement. We have a Mahabalipuram trip on Sunday.